Hey YouTube, this is Rasmus Part Fan 62. If you've not been on social media today, you would know that today, Tuesday, uh, April the 15th at about 6:30 earlier today, there was stuff coming out potentially about Marria May in AEW going to WWE. Okay, here is the thing. Marria, as her character, is great. She plays the, baby face well, or she can play that sick or sadistic heel well as well. With that being said, she signed a 2-year contract with AEW, which is supposed to come up soon. So she signed a contract in November of 2023. And right now they are saying it's supposed to be up either in the summer to November. So right now it's clearly unsure what is going on. And then they're also saying possibly of Tony adding time onto Mariah's contract. Why? I'm not entirely sure, because I don't think she was ever hurt. The main problem has been the booking of her title reign, because minus Revolution and Grand Slam, the booking for her title reigns have been mediocre at best. The main problem has been, she would get into this small feud versus Mina Shirakawa, versus Jamie Hayter, versus this, versus that. And the main problem has been, it's only been 1 or 2 matches, and then, on to the next person. It's like, what? So the main problem has been that she's only 26 years old. She has a long wrestling career ahead of her. The main problem is, and essentially she is a star in the company, but the thing is, once she goes to WWE, she could become an even bigger star. Now, the main problem she is going to face in WWE is the fact there are several women that look just like her. So you're talking about women like Tiffany Stratton, Liv Morgan, Alexa Bliss, this and that. So she's going to have to find a way to make her look different than everybody else I just mentioned. Now, the problem is with AEW is history is repeating itself. With Stephanie Vacour last year, she came in representing CMLL, which is one of the affiliates with the AEW. And originally, Tony was wanting to sign her to a contract. But after Forbidden Door, within like a week, essentially WWE came calling and she went over to WWE. Now, the thing is, Tony offered Stephanie a boatload of money. We don't know the exact amount. So when Stephanie told WWE, essentially, WWE's like, no, we can't do that, but good luck. I don't know how long after, but Shawn Michaels came in, called Stephanie, and convinced her to come for a lot less money. How much, we don't know at this point. Now, this is starting to look like that, where Mariah could go to WWE for less money than she's making now, but, build that up, where she could still make, six figures from merchandise sales and being in PLEs and this and that. The main problem is you have to think as well, there are other women in AEW that is looking at Marria May and be like, yeah, I want to go where she's going. You have Anna Jay, who has not been seen since Christmas in AEW or New Year's in New Japan Pro Wrestling. You have Hikaru Shida, who, to the most part, streams when AEW's on TV. You have, all these women, just looking like, okay, I'm going to go where they're going. Because the thing is, Tony keeps bringing in new talent, and they're slowly going down the card. Britt Baker, we have not seen her since, late last year or early this year. And who knows what she's doing. We've not heard a peep from her. And she's took out all references of AEW on her Twitter and all of that. The problem is Tony does not want to build up stars. Essentially, he's bringing these women in. Doesn't matter if they come from Japan. They come from the independent scene, this and that. And bringing them where, you'll put them on TV. You have them face Tony Storm or Mercedes Moné or whoever. And then they fall right down the card again to where they're in Ring of Honor, where 50 people probably watch it. I don't know how many people watch Ring of Honor weekly. Meanwhile, over in NXT, you're having, 2 to 3 women's storylines going on at once. You have Julia, you have Stephanie Vacour, you're having Jordan Grace. All these women who WWE, who's, either built them up or they've had a good impression of them coming in and they're sticking with it. Julia and Stephanie Vacour were only in WWE for barely 6 months, if that, and they were in the Women's Royal Rumble match in February. And they are essentially going to be one of the key things at NXT Stand and Deliver on Saturday morning, and all of this other stuff. Meanwhile, you have women like Julia Hart, who jobbed out to Mercedes Moné just for Mercedes Moné, essentially that's going to win the Owen Hart tournament, and just have another belt. Like, whoop-de-doo. The main problem is you're going to start seeing a trend where AEWs get fed up, they want a release, they get granted their release, and then they go to WWE, and they turn into bigger stars. Look at people like Penta, Ray Phoenix, who just debuted 2 weeks ago. Ricky Starks, who has been on NXT not long, and he's already a champion. Jade Cargill, who is going into her second WrestleMania, first, singles match versus Naomi. You're having all these people coming in, as well as people like Aleister Black, Miro, Rusev, whatever you want to call him, coming back. And so you're going to start to notice where more and more people are like, yes, I'm making more money. Yes, I have less dates. But the thing is, even if you are sitting on a mountain of money and you're miserable, what's the case? this is something that I think is going to happen with Mariah. Yes, she's making more money. Yes, maybe her and WWE can come to the middle where she's making slightly less than she's making in AEW now, but still good enough. But women like, Julia, Jordan Grace, Stephanie Vakor, all these women, WWE brought in within the last 6 months to a year, they're going to be in their first Stand and Deliver. Probably at least one or two of those women I just said are going to be going up to the main roster in the draft coming up. AEW is a place essentially to get paid a lot of money and maybe do so many dates and then just sit there and do nothing. If you look at Anna Jay's Instagram or her TikTok, it's her reviewing coffee. Hardly anything wrestling related. The problem is with AEW in general, it's just a place just to get paid a lot of money to do very little work. And with Mariah, she got brought in as a super fan of Toni Storm, and she essentially was by her side for those 6 months, a year, whatever, however long that was, till that turn where her and Toni got into that feud, which essentially was the best thing in AEW for a while. So they essentially was like the best of three, I think it was. And so you had that women's match at Revolution, which could have potentially been Mariah's send-off. Supposedly there's a rumor of she asked for her release not long after Revolution. If that is true, I'm not entirely sure. But the main problem is it's getting to a point with AEW where you're like, okay, what is the point? Because they don't believe in long-term storytelling. Now they do have storytelling, but it's not long-term. And it's typically the same people over and over and over again. Now, am I saying it's like that in WWE? Yes, to a point. The main problem is going to be you have other women in AEW who want a chance, to step up to Toni Storm, to step up to Mercedes Moné. But the problem is they are more than likely going to job to them, and then they go back down the card again. We're probably going to start seeing that with Megan Bayne here pretty soon. I wish Mariah nothing but the best, whatever she decides to do. Doesn't matter if she stay in AEW for another 2 years and then go to WWE, or once her contract is up, she goes over to WWE. Now, let's say her contract is up in the summer. First of all, what does that even mean this summer? Does that mean Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day weekend? Because if it's Labor Day weekend, they could debut her in time for Halloween Havoc. We don't know. That is the thing. How Mariah feels of AEW, I'm not entirely sure at this point. But it's going to get to a point where you're going to start seeing a mass exodus of people leaving AEW due to just sitting around doing nothing. Ricky Starks essentially sat home or did small independent shows for 6 months to a year before, they granted him his release. Penta, he was lucky he was able to get out when he did. Ray Phoenix, they added an extra month or two onto his contract because of supposedly injury time. You know, now am I saying that doesn't happen in WWE to this day? No. But I'm saying it's going to get to a point where you're going to start seeing more and more and more things like that happen.